Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of my podcast, Book and Story World with author Priya Grewal. So, hope everyone is well, and welcome and thank you to any listeners out there. So, for my fourth episode in Season 2, I've decided to read aloud one of my books called Evil Born of Satan. So this one's a murder mystery. So I did have fun writing this one after reading a couple of murder mysteries myself. So on the front cover, the subtitle is A Killer on the Loose, Fear at Every Turn. And that's by myself, Priya Grewal. So along with the rest of my self-published collection with Amazon KDP, all of my books are available on Amazon in paperback or on Kindle. So let's get started. So I'm reading aloud one of my murder mystery books called Evil Born of Satan by myself, Priya Grewal. Prologue. In a dark cave, a group of 10 individuals in brown hooded cloaks hold candles in both of their hands. The cave is lit with candles around the interior of the cave. The group of individuals stand in a circle. There are 3 women and 7 men chanting. Hail Satan, the group chants repeatedly. One of the men shouts, Hail Satan, loudly, and the group stops chanting. 2 more brown-hooded and cloaked figures walk into the cave with a figure in a red hood and cloak standing in the middle of them. The group of 10 split apart and the figure in red stands in the middle of the circle and kneels. The 2 other figures join the circle. The man standing in front of the red-cloaked and hooded figure begins speaking. Do you commit yourself to our Lord Satan from this point onwards in your life? The male hooded figure asked the kneeling figure. I do, responds the kneeling figure. Do you commit to the endeavors of Satan from this point onwards for the rest of your days? The hooded figure asked the kneeling figure. I do, the kneeling figure responds. Do you declare yourself as a servant of the coven of Satan, committed to carrying out whichever act of evil is assigned to you? The hooded figure asked the kneeling figure. I do, the kneeling figure responds. From this point onwards, will you dedicate yourself to our Lord Satan, thanking him for the act of murder whenever you commit an act of evil on behalf of yourself or the coven? Attributing the invention of killing to himself, the hooded figure asked the kneeling figure. I will, the kneeling figure responds. One of the members of the coven leaves the circle and picks up a sword lying next to the candles to the side of the cave. The coven member carefully passes the sword to the speaker. The hooded figure touches both shoulders of the kneeling figure with the sword and says, I dub thee a full member of the coven of Satan, sealed with your first kill, for now and forevermore. You may stand, the hooded figure tells the kneeling figure. The red-hooded cloaked figure stands and bows his head to the speaker. Hail Satan, the figure shouts. Hail Satan, the circle chants one more time. Chapter 1. Naira sat at the breakfast table with her parents in their family home. She was reading the local newspaper in disbelief. She could not believe it. One of the most popular guys from school, body had been found near a river in town. He had been stabbed to death. He had met up with a few friends at a pub and been stabbed to death on his way home. Naira looked at his picture on the front page in shock. He was smiling. His name was Kareem. She thought back to their lessons together in year 7, 8 and 9 before the year group had been split into different sections in year 10. She practically worshipped him at that point in life. He was good at football and was popular with the males in the year above because of it. She used to enjoy sitting next to him and chatting during their history and maths lessons. He had always been nice to her. She remembered back to year 9 and remembered wanting to throw a celebration party when he gave her a Christmas card and didn't give one to her best friend at the time, as she found it a testimony on popularity, believing him to be more popular than herself. Naira may have moved on from year 9 and forgot about the year 7 to 9 dynamics when year 10 began, but there was no way Kareem couldn't be described as one of the most popular people in the year group. I can't believe it, Naira said to her father, who was drinking his tea at the table reading the national newspaper. Her mother was wiping down the surfaces in the kitchen. "This boy was in my year," Naira exclaimed. "I sat next to him in class. He was my classmate." "How could this happen?" Naira asked, still in shock. "It's awful," her mother responded. "So sad." "His poor parents," Naira's dad said seriously. "I think he said his parents were divorced. He lived with his mum and sister. I think he may have mentioned a grandma at some point," Naira told them. Naira was 24 years old. The newspaper headline was, "24-year-old man found dead near river, stabbed to death." Naira worked part-time at the local supermarket and lived with her parents. She had a brother who was at university at the moment and lived out in halls during term time. Naira had gone to university and attained a degree in ancient history. She had been working part-time at the local supermarket ever since she graduated. She liked being back home with her parents and living back in town permanently once university had finished. "Who would want to kill him, though?" Naira asked her parents, still astounded. "I don't get it," Naira said. "He was really popular." "I don't know," her dad responded seriously. "People do get jealous of people, especially popular people," he added. "That's right, sweetheart," Naira's mother commented. "You think someone killed him because they were jealous of him being popular back at school?" Naira asked her parents in disbelief. "Sounds like it may be the case," her dad responded. Naira sat back in her chair, feeling scared. "It means there's a killer on the loose in town," Naira's mother said sternly. "I want you home every evening by 7 p.m., Naira's mother ordered her. "That's right," her father agreed. "And if you're meeting up with friends, I want you to only meet up if someone is driving," her mother said. "I want you picked up and dropped off right outside the house," her mother ordered. "Okay, Mum," Naira said. She looked back down at the photograph of Kareem, the feel of anxiety rising in her throat. Chapter 2. Naira had the day off from work. She was lying on her bed in her bedroom, still looking at the newspaper and photograph of her deceased classmate. Suddenly, her mobile phone began vibrating. Naira picked her phone up and glanced at the screen to see who was calling. It was who she considered to be her current best friend, Evro, calling. Naira answered the call and greeted Evro. "Hi, Evro," Naira greeted. "Have you heard the news?" "You mean about Kareem?" Evro asked. "Yes," Naira responded. "Yeah, I can't believe it. I hadn't spoken to him for a few years, but he was always friendly to me. He faded into the background a little when the teacher split up the bands and jumbled up the year group together," Evro stated. "Didn't fade into the background enough?" Naira exclaimed. "What does that mean?" Evro asked, giggling slightly, sounding awkward. "My dad reckons he was killed due to popularity in school," Naira told Evro. "Someone who was jealous of his popularity at school killed him." "Whoa, really?" Evro replied. "That's scary. Were you popular at school?" he asked her, laughing slightly. "Oh, I don't know," Naira responded. "Hopefully everyone just hated us. Scary times," Evro stated. "Do you want to meet up and go for a drive around 2 p.m? We can pop into Fluxy's and grab a burger and fries," Evro asked. "Yeah, okay," Naira said. Fluxy's was a chicken shop her and Evro liked driving to. It was far enough for a car trip, but still local. Naira loved listening to music in the car really loudly. It was one of her favourite things to do, be driven around with the music blaring. Evro always hooked up his iPod to the car stereo, and Naira picked which songs to listen to. "Okay, I'll pick you up in an hour," Evro said. "See you then." Evro hung up. Naira got out of her pyjamas, which she was still in, and pulled on some jogging bottoms with a hoodie. She sat back down on her bed and opened her laptop to look at photos of Kareem on social media. She scrolled down her homepage and saw a lot of RIP Kareem statuses. Naira put on the radio in the background, reading everything that people had written on Kareem's now deceased profile page. Chapter 3. An hour or so later, Naira was sitting in the car parked up and eating a chicken burger and fries with the music playing quietly in the background. "Any ideas?" Evro asked Naira as he ate his burger. "About what?" Naira asked. "Who killed Kareem?" Evro asked. "Oh, you want to try and work it out?" Naira asked. "Can have a stab at it," Evro responded. "Well, hopefully there's a detective working on the job," Naira said. "Any open grudges you can remember?" Evro asked. "Well, he was one of the best at football," Naira said, "from practicing, obviously. Evra replied as he ate into his burger. So, it could be someone who wanted to be on the football team, Naira suggested. Not a bad place to start as a theory, Evra exclaimed. Who wanted to be on the football team real bad? Wonder if the rest of the football team are in danger. Naira couldn't help laughing. Someone with a grudge on the whole football team. Well, like your dad said, jealousy. So yeah, it's a motive, Evra remarked. I bet you're glad you were never on any sports team now, Naira commented. Hey, I had my charisma and charm to live off. I didn't need to be on any sports team, Evra exclaimed defensively. Yeah, Naira responded. My mum wants me home by 7 p.m. every day, Naira told Evra. And dropped right outside our front door, Naira told him. Well, better get you back home then, Princess, Evra stated. Evra picked up their rubbish and put it in the brown takeaway bag and threw it onto the back seat. Thanks, Naira said, turning the volume up on the song that was playing. Evra put the car into gear and the pair sped off, music playing so loud it felt like the ground was shaking underneath them. Chapter 4. Naira woke up the next day and left the house early for her morning shift at the local supermarket. It was only a 10-minute walk from her house. It was winter, so Naira had put on her winter coat and shivered at the brisk cold as she walked to work. She walked past the cars in front of the supermarket and entered the supermarket hurriedly. She put her coat away in the staff area. She was wearing her supermarket uniform underneath, which was a red t-shirt with the name of the supermarket on it. The supermarket was called Crowton's. Hi, Naira said to her work colleagues, who were also pulling their coats off. Hey, Naira, her work colleague called Sanrita responded. Sanrita had her hair tied back in a low ponytail. Hey, her colleague called Vardo said back. Vardo was male and quite small for his age and height. He was 19 years old. He was of Asian descent and had his hair gelled into a spiky look. Okay, guys, Naira turned around as her manager called out to them. Hi, Ketan, Naira greeted her manager. Hello, Ketan said. Ketan was around 31 years old and was tall and friendly and cheerful most of the time. I want you three to stock the shelves with the new groceries that have arrived before we open at 10, Ketan ordered the three of them. Okay, boss, Vardo replied brightly. Suck up, muttered Sanrita to Vardo as their manager left them to stock the shelves. Vardo said, hey, and punched Sanrita lightly on the arm. It might get me somewhere one day, you know, Vardo insisted. Ha ha, Sanrita said sarcastically. You are a loser, she said, making the L shape with her hand. Naira started laughing and the three of them began stocking the shelves with the new groceries. Naira began stocking the bread shelf. Have you heard? Sanrita suddenly turned and asked Naira. Heard what? You mean about Kareem? Naira asked. It's terrible. No, Sanrita said dramatically. There's been another murder. Another one? Naira asked. Kareem's murder was only in the local newspaper yesterday. Yeah, Sanrita responded. I picked up the local paper this morning on my way to work and saw there has been another one. Give me a second. I'll go get it. Sanrita went to the staff area and picked up her bag. She brought a rolled-up newspaper out with her. See, Sanrita said, spreading the newspaper so Naira and Vardo could see the front page. They both huddled around Sanrita. No way, Vardo's deep voice said out loud, looking in shock. Naira gasped as she looked at the photograph. This time there was a photo of a girl Naira didn't know very well. She knew her name but had never really spoken to her. The girl's name was Helia Roxton. They had been in the same English class in year 10. Helia was a pretty girl who was good at English literature. She always put her hand up and wrote the best essays. She had been a really good story and poetry writer when she was in primary school. Students from the same primary school had told Naira in English class. Now Helia's smiling photo looked back at them all. Naira shuddered as she read the headline. 24-year-old woman's body found stabbed to death in alleyway. Naira put her hand over her mouth in shock. Vardo looked over Sanrita's shoulder to look at Naira. Hanfield High, Vardo said to Naira. Isn't that the school that you went to? The paper had written what school Helia had gone to. Yes, Naira said quietly. Kareem was from my school too. Damn, Vardo exclaimed. Did you know them both? I knew Kareem up until year 10. Helia I was in the same year 10 English class as, but I never spoke to her. She was pretty, though, Naira told him. Yeah, he trailed off as he looked at the photograph in the paper of Helia. Naira felt her insides coil up in fear. The killer had struck again, and this time it was someone who was well known for being good at something in school again. First football, then English literature. Naira felt fear rise in her throat. She shivered, this time in fear, not because of the cold. She dreaded walking down the road again to her house after work. Oi, you guys, she suddenly heard her manager Ketan shout. Get back to work. Naira resumed stocking the shelf with bread, hands trembling. Chapter 5. Well done, an authoritative voice in a brown hooded cloak said to the figure in the red cloak. Figures in brown hooded cloaks stood around the cave again. A red hooded and cloaked kneeling figure kneeled in front of the speaker again. Not only have you sealed your initiation with your first kill, you have also committed another. Very good choices too, the speaker complimented the figure in red. We all, of course, still have our own school jealousies we like to take care of, even if it is decades later now, the speaker said to the kneeling figure. The other figures in brown hooded cloaks began laughing. They finished with a "Hail Satan." And who do we thank for the invention that means we can dispose of those we become jealous of? Asked the speaker. The red hooded figure said, Our Lord Satan, silkily. You may stand, the speaker told the kneeling figure. Remove your cloak, the speaker told the figure in red. The figure in red removed the cloak from the shoulders. Another figure in the brown hooded cloak took the red cloak and gave the figure a brown hooded cloak. You are now officially one of us, the speaker said. Your initiation period is over. You can now go and kill as you please and update us with all your killings. The figure admired the brown hooded cloak happily for a moment, and then lifted the hood to cover the head. Thank you, the new member said, bowing to the speaker again. And of course, the speaker continued, once you are one of us, there are other pleasures to enjoy in between killings. One of the hooded figures took their hood down and smiled at the new member of the Coven of Satan. They took the hand of the new member smiling and led the figure away from the group. Chapter 6. Naira's mother had insisted that Naira be collected from work by her father as soon as she had seen the headlines in the newspaper about there being another killing. Naira's father had bought a restaurant and ran it so he could leave work whenever he wanted. It was called Taizo's. At 3 p.m, Naira stood outside the supermarket waiting for her father to arrive. He pulled up outside the supermarket a minute later. Naira smiled and waved and headed towards the car. Hi, love, Naira's dad greeted her as she got into the front seat. Are you okay? He asked her. Yeah, Naira said, trailing off a little. I can't believe there has been another one. The girl used to be in my Year 10 English class. Naira's father put the car into gear and drove away from the supermarket. It's terrible, Naira's dad commented. It's like someone is killing off people from your year group one by one. So far it's when they have a talent, Naira told him. Kareem was good at football and popular, and Helia was good at story writing and poetry writing when she was in primary school. She always had her hand up in English class, Naira told her dad. I'm glad I wasn't good at anything, Naira exclaimed. Her father chuckled. What do you mean, he said. You got three A's in your A-levels. That's not a talent, though, Naira explained. That's just choosing to take notes and memorize them to pass the exams. You're not giving yourself enough credit, Naira's dad told her. It takes dedication and determination to choose to want to get good grades by doing the revision, he said. Naira said. Hopefully it's not on the killer's list of things he or she has a problem with. Well, there's a curfew set now, her father said. I'll drop you off to work when your shift starts and pick you up. And as your mother said, you can only meet up with friends if you have got a lift, and you still must be back by 7 p.m, he told her. Okay, Dad, Naira said, grateful for her protective parents. If she was younger, Naira thought to herself, she would probably hide the newspaper from her mum and dad so she could still go out when she pleased. Being older made her more aware and smarter. Naira looked at the streets they drove past as the pair headed towards home. The streets were quiet with barely anyone around. Naira only saw what looked like one teenager walking down a road with his hood up. He glanced at Naira as the car drove past him, and Naira quickly averted her eyes, feeling scared. She wondered where and who the killer was, and if he or she was going to strike again, who would the victim be? Naira sighed a sigh of relief as her dad parked into their drive. She rushed inside the house, grateful for the warmth and safety. Chapter 7. Naira woke up on Saturday morning, grateful that it was the weekend. She didn't have any shifts during the weekend and was grateful to relax with the bad news that had been coming in. She stretched her arms and remembered that there was a killer on the loose. Naira went downstairs, grabbed some cereal and went to sit in the living room. Her mother was watching TV. "Morning, love," her mother asked. Her mother was watching the news. "Can you believe it?" her mother asked her in dismay. "There is no word about the killer on the loose or the dead bodies on the main news or local news. It's only in the local paper. What is the world coming to?" "That's terrible," Naira said worriedly. "In the movies and TV shows, they always feature the story on the news," Naira commented. "This is awful. If they had it on the national news and local, then maybe it would be easier to catch the killer," Naira's mother commented. Naira looked at the TV screen as the weatherman came on. She shook her head in disbelief. Suddenly, Naira's phone began to vibrate. She had her phone on silent as usual so it didn't annoy her parents. She looked at the screen. Evro was calling. "Sorry, Mum," Naira said. "I'll just be a second." Naira picked up her phone and went to the kitchen to take the call. "Hey, girl," Evro said enthusiastically down the phone. "Hi, Evro," Naira replied, assuming he had seen the news about Helia in the newspaper. "Yeah, I heard about it and got the paper," Evro replied when Naira asked if he had heard the news. "Let's not get miserable," Evro said animatedly. "Do you want to go to Lanya's house? She's invited us two and Redrick over." I don't know," Naira responded. "I'm a little scared." "Oh, don't worry. I'll pick you up from your house at 1 p.m. and we'll have you back by 7 p.m. We don't need to hide indoors. I've got my car," Evro reassured Naira. "We can order some pizza in. Lanya's got a free house. Her parents and siblings have gone out to some wedding in a different city or something," Evro told Naira. "Okay then," Naira replied, caving in. Just the four of them at her friend Lanya's sounded fun, especially the part about the pizza. Redrick was also one of Naira's good friends. They had become good friends after school had finished. Lanya was one of Naira's oldest friends, and Evro and herself had become friends when secondary school started in year 7. "Okay, I'll see you at 1 p.m, Evro declared. "Bye." Evro had hung up before Naira could say bye back. Naira returned to the living room to finish her cereal. "Mum," Naira said quietly. "What is it?" her mum asked. "Is it okay if I go to Lanya's house? Evro said he will pick me up and drop me off by 7 p.m. Redrick is also going," Naira told her mum. "They're going to get some pizzas in," Naira told her mother. Her mother frowned for a moment. "Okay," she agreed, "but no later than 7 p.m. and remember, get dropped off right outside the door." "I will, Mum," Naira said happily. She finished her cereal and went upstairs to get changed. Chapter 8. A couple of hours later, Naira was sitting in Lanya's living room with Lanya, Evro and Redrick. Evro had picked her up at 1 p.m. on the dot. He had seemed worried about the news but excited to go and speak to Redrick and Lanya about it. Lanya had given Naira a big hug when she entered the house. Redrick looked serious. "It's so scary," Lanya said as the four sat in her living room. "First Kareem, now Helia," Lanya said. "Why did we even go to school?" Lanya exclaimed. "It's just like everyone is getting killed off one by one. Then it's weirder when they were both known to be good at something." "Yeah," Redrick agreed. "Wonder if the kids are still going to school." "I think they are," Evro replied knowingly. "Life rolls on as usual no matter what the news is." "That's true," Naira commented. "Doesn't mean it's right, though." "Having to do subjects people get killed over later," Naira exclaimed. "I'm sure it would happen anyway," Redrick said, "even if there was no school and we had a different society." Naira commented. "Any ideas of who it is?" Evro asked the others. "No," Lanya responded. "Shall we make a list of people who it could be? People who were jealous of both Kareem and Helia?" "Okay," the others agreed. Lanya went to fetch a notebook and pen and sat on the sofa again. Lanya wrote culprit list on the top of the page of the notebook. "Right," she said. "Any ideas?" A silence fell over the four of them. Naira began giggling a moment later. "I can't think of anyone," she said. "I barely even remember most of the year group." Evra and Redrick began chuckling. "Anyone got any ideas at all?" Helia said exasperatedly. Anyone got any ideas at all? Lanya said exasperately. This time, Evro began to laugh. I don't know. There were 280 kids in the year, Evro stated. How could we know who was jealous of who? There wasn't even the concept of jealousy back then. The concept kind of disappeared along the way. Yeah, Redrick commented. The year group is kind of one big blur. Fine then, Lanya said, putting down the notebook and pen on the table. She sighed. Guess I'll just order the pizza then, Lanya said, reaching for the phone. Chapter 9. The killer smiled happily. The killer glanced at their new ring, the secret symbol of the Coven of Satan. The killer admired the ring on their finger. All the killer's dreams had come true. The killer got to kill whoever they were jealous of, and the killings were celebrated by a group of people, the membership ever growing, all celebrating their kills together, admiring Satan all the while for his invention. The killer didn't know where Satan was, accepting that he was real and genuinely thanking him for the invention of how to dispose of those we're jealous of. The killer smiled again, happy about disposing of so far 2 members of the year group who inspired jealousy in the killer's soul. The killer enjoyed ridding society of the pair, ending their existence, and felt all-powerful. The killer smiled even more widely, thinking about the pleasures that were also offered. It was nice to be intimate with someone who was also evil. The killer sighed happily. Whose existence would the killer end next? Chapter 10. The female stood outside her house waiting for the friend who had called her to show up. She dug her hands into her coat pockets, frowning at the delay and the cold. She had put the trash out up front as she agreed to meet her friend in front of her house at 7:30 p.m. She glanced at the sky. There was a full moon out tonight. Her friend had said they would be outside her house at 7:30 p.m. on the dot. It was now 7:37 p.m., the female saw as she glanced at her watch. For the love of God, the female muttered, getting irritated. She pulled out her phone and tried calling her friend. She listened to the dial tone for a few minutes. No one picked up and there wasn't a voicemail set up. The female decided to give her friend 1 more minute to turn up. If the friend wasn't there in a minute, she would go back inside her house. Lanya, she heard a voice whisper behind her. Lanya turned around to see who had said her name. She suddenly felt a sharp pain in her torso. She looked down and saw a red substance leaking out of her. It was her blood. There was a large silver kitchen knife sticking into her. Lanya looked up into the eyes of the killer in shock. The killer had a hood on. She could just about make out his face. She fell to the ground in pain. As she collapsed, she looked at the killer's face in silent shock, trying to splatter out words. Then everything went dark. Chapter 11. Naira woke to her phone vibrating the next morning. She glanced at her clock radio and saw that it was 11 a.m. in the morning. She stretched out, being grateful that it was only Sunday. She didn't have a shift at the supermarket until Monday afternoon. Naira picked up her phone, glancing at the screen. It was Redrick calling. Hi, Redrick, Naira greeted, letting out a yawn. Naira, Redrick said, sounding emotional. What's wrong? Naira asked, sounding concerned at Redrick's tone of voice. It's Lanya, Redrick blurted out. She's the killer's 3rd victim. What do you mean? Naira asked in shock, not comprehending what Redrick was telling her. It's Lanya, Naira. She's been murdered outside our house yesterday evening. The police and ambulance took her body away around 9 p.m. last night, Redrick exclaimed, fear resonating in his voice. She was stabbed with a knife. Naira remained in shocked silence. Naira, are you there? Redrick shouted. Naira blinked, trying to retrieve her senses. I just can't believe it, Naira said in shock. Why is this happening? Naira asked, tears starting to slide down her face. She could hear the lump in Redrick's throat as he tried to talk. Why did she leave her house after we left? Naira cried. Why didn't she stay indoors? Naira, Redrick and Evro had left Lanya's house the previous evening at around 6:45 p.m. I don't know, Redrick stated, sounding devastated. Whoever did it took her phone too, he informed Naira. So whoever it was may have called her to lure her out of her house once it was dark, Naira asked. Doesn't that mean the killer is someone she knew? Naira asked, panic rising in her throat. I don't know what it means, Redrick said. I can't even think straight. Do the police think it is definitely the same person who killed all 3 of them? Naira asked. Must be, Redrick guessed. How many killers can there be loose at the same time? Lanya was from the same year group as Kareem and Helia, just like us. Have the police spoken to you yet? Naira asked. No, not yet, Redrick responded. We were the last people to see her alive, Naira said. I'll give the police a call and tell them that we saw her last yesterday, Redrick said. I don't want to leave my house to go and tell them in person. Don't worry about anything, Naira. I'll give our names and details of yesterday to them, Redrick assured Naira. I'll call you back once I've spoken to them, Redrick told Naira, hanging up the phone. Naira put her phone down on the bed. She stared into space, seeing nothing. Chapter 12. Naira still went to work the next day. Her father dropped her off at the supermarket for her shift at 1:30 p.m. He told her he would pick her up at 7:30 p.m. He told her not to stand outside the supermarket but wait inside, and he would call her once he was outside the supermarket. Naira agreed to this. Her parents were shocked and saddened to learn about Lanya's murder. Naira had gone downstairs to the living room to tell them. Her mother had wrapped her arms around Naira as tears slid down Naira's face. Her father also comforted her as much as he could. He had spoken to a couple of his friends over the phone about it. The community was left stunned and reeling after the third murder. A state of fear had begun to consume the streets, residents becoming too scared to leave their houses. Naira didn't take the day off work. She preferred to be distracted instead of staying at home, falling into depression and devastation about Lanya's death. Her parents had agreed to her going into work as long as she didn't leave the supermarket until her father was outside. Naira was on her break at around 4 p.m. Sanrita and Vardo were talking in hushed whispers in disbelief about the third murder. When Naira told them it was her friend who had been murdered, they had begun treating her like a celebrity. They listened to her in awe and asked questions as she told them her and her two male friends had been the last to see Lanya alive. They were still glancing around, whispering somewhat excitedly when Naira went for her break. She pulled out her phone. Evro had left her a text message saying, "Call me when you're free." Naira had called Evro the day earlier but only spoke to him briefly. He had sounded too distraught to talk. Naira selected his name on her contact list and pushed the dial button. "Naira," Evro said as he answered the call. "How are you doing?" he asked Naira. "As well as can be expected," Naira muttered, feeling downcast. "Listen, let me pick you up from work today. You finish at 7:30 p.m. on Mondays, right? We can talk and console one another. It will help us come to terms with the death," Evro said kindly. "It was a murder, Evro," Naira corrected him, "not death." "Oh, you know what I mean," Evro exclaimed. "Okay," Naira replied. "I'll just call my dad quickly and let him know." "Okay," Evro said as Naira hung up the phone. She called her dad, who answered his phone quite quickly. She asked him if it was okay if she let Evro pick her up from work today so they could both talk about Lanya. "Okay, honey," her dad had said. "Don't leave the supermarket until he is right outside, okay?" her dad instructed her. "I know, Dad," Naira replied. "Thanks, I'll see you at home later." Naira ended the call and called Evro back quickly. "Okay, I'll see you at 7:30 p.m. Give me a call when you are parked outside the supermarket. I'll leave when you are outside." "Okay, see you then," Evro replied. Naira ended the call and went to serve on the till. Chapter 13. The killer smiled as the coven of Satan partied in the cave. The coven acted like the killer was a hero, already on their third kill. The killer had selected the target he had selected because she was a gymnastics winner. The killer remembered back to school assemblies and the teachers making a big deal out of some borough competition and Lanya winning the gymnastics section. What was the big deal, the killer thought to themselves at the time, sitting in the assembly, not being recognized for any achievements themselves. The killer didn't bother much with extracurricular activities, but envy still seeped through themselves when watching others get awarded. The killer laughed and began partying too. The killer was going to go for a fourth victim and be happy with that person's disposal and being celebrated by the coven afterwards. Chapter 14. Naira waited for Evro to call her as she waited in the staff area. At 7:30 p.m. on the dot, her phone began to buzz. "I'm right outside, parked at the back of the shop," Evro told Naira. "Okay, I'll be out in a second," Naira told him. Naira exited through the back door of the supermarket wearing her hooded winter coat. She exited through the door and shut the door, double-checking it to make sure she had closed it properly. She saw Evro waiting in the driver's seat of his car. She waved at him as he stared at her. Naira got into the car shivering and said, "Hi, Evro. Thank you for picking me up." "That's okay. I needed to see you. I can't get my head around Lanya's murder," Evro confided in Naira. He began to pull out of the parking area behind the supermarket. Naira looked at the darkening evening sky, lost for words for a moment. I know, Naira replied. What's worse is it was probably someone she knew and trusted. What do you mean? Evro asked questioningly, looking puzzled as he sped down the roads further away from the supermarket. Well, someone must have lured her out of the house. Someone she knew and trusted to lure her out when it's dark and a killer is on the loose, Naira explained. Her phone was taken too to back up the theory. Oh, well, aren't you a clever clogs, Evro stated. I can't think past the fact that Lanya has been murdered, Evro said, let alone start coming up with theories. The car approached a field that Naira hadn't seen before. Let's park up and talk here, Evro stated. He drove the car onto the field grass and parked. He turned to look at Naira once he had stopped the car. It's so awful, Evro said, reaching across and caressing Naira's cheek with his hand. Who would do something like this, Evro asked. And why was the killer jealous of Lanya if the theory still goes that the killer is acting out of jealousy about things to do with school? Well, Naira said, not used to Evro touching her face or physical contact with himself. I'm not sure. We liked her, so maybe it was to do with popularity? Evro replied. Oh, wait, Naira trailed off, thinking back to school. It can't be over her getting a certificate to do with gymnastics. That assembly in year 9, Naira said. Who would be that pathetic? Naira asked, dumbfounded. You'd be surprised, Evro commented, sounding monotone. Evro clicked one of the buttons in front of him. The little door of the shelf in front of Naira in the car flicked open. Naira glanced at the shelf. Fear began stilling her as she saw that there was a phone on the shelf. It was a pink phone, the same as Lanya had. Naira's hand shook as she reached out to get the phone. Hands trembling, she picked up the phone. The phone screen was on the last called list. Naira looked and saw that the last person who had rung the phone was Evro. The name Evro with 7 p.m. underneath, his name was the last caller on the phone list. Naira, hands shaking, pressed the back key. There was a picture of Lanya with Naira and Redrick and Evro on her phone screen. Naira dropped the phone in shock. She turned to look at Evro. He was smiling. Why do you have Lanya's phone? Naira asked. You were the last person to call her. You lured her out of her house, didn't you? Evro stared at her for a moment, eyes darkening. Well, it took you long enough, Evro exclaimed. I deliberately opened the shelf in front of you for you to see the phone. That's how I reveal myself to you, Evro shouted maniacally. Naira looked at Evro in pure fear as his face contorted into an evil smirk. Chapter 14. We were all friends, Naira stuttered. Why would you do this? I found a new group of friends, Evro said manically. I'm a member of the Coven of Satan. We do as we please. Worshipping Satan means we get to kill those we envy. It was time for my school revenge, Evro explained. First I went for Kareem, Evro said. It was me who wanted to be on the football team real bad. The effect of him being on the team and being popular annoyed me. So I finally got to get rid of him. Second of all, Helia. You forgot it was me who said she was good at English literature and story writing in primary school. I went to the same primary school. So, I got revenge for all that attention she got over her writing. Next, our friend Lanya. Sure, I liked her as a friend, but I wanted to stand up in assembly in year 9 and get a certificate for gymnastics or anything at all, he screamed. So, he said more calmly, running his hands through his hair, it was time for revenge. It was time for Lanya to go. You're a monster, Naira screamed at him. How could you kill over those things? They were innocent people. Oh, whatever, Naira. No one is innocent in this world. Why should they get all the attention? Now it's me time. Time for me. Time for Evro. When I get hailed a hero for my murders by the Coven of Satan. It's a new world. Shame you'll never be a part of it, Evro spat. What do you mean? Naira managed to say, fear beginning to consume her. Oh, you forgot, Evro said, staring at her manically. What was your talent at school, stupid Naira, he said happily. You got 3 A's for A-levels and a picture in the local newspaper with the other few. Naira began trembling. That's no big deal, Evro, she said. Evro paused and looked at her. You just didn't bother with the revision. It's not fair to kill over that. I just chose to take notes and memorize them for the exams. You just didn't bother, Naira said, trying to reason with the madman. Well, I got jealous of the effect of it afterwards, didn't I? Evro spluttered. He stared at Naira for another moment. Naira stared back, looking into the eyes of pure evil. So, it is time to dispose of you, Evro explained quietly. She glanced at Evero's hand to see what he was doing. The shining gleam of a silver knife appeared from Evero's side. He was pulling it out slowly from where he had hidden it next to his seat of the car. Naira screamed as she saw the full length of the knife and saw Evro turn his evil eyes towards her, meaning to end her existence once and for all. Chapter 15. Naira screamed and opened the car door. Luckily, Evro had forgotten to lock the car doors. Naira managed to dodge Evro's knife in the nick of time. She ran out of the car onto the field, not knowing which way to run. She stood in front of the car as Evro leaped out of the car, knife in hand. His dark eyes were glistening. She felt hatred grip her as his wavy dark hair and blue jumper began to repulse her. "Naira," he screamed, "there's no running away from a member of the Coven of Satan." "Whatever," Naira spluttered out. "You are a traitor." "I am a god," Evro screamed. "I can take away life as I please." Naira hated his evil, vain face contorted in rage, deluded into thinking he was in the right. Evro took a step towards her and raised his knife in the air. He lunged. Naira managed to dodge the knife again. She noticed the trees in the distance and decided to run towards them. "There's no escaping me, Naira," shouted Evro, following her. As Naira ran as fast as she could towards the trees, a blinding light came rushing towards them. Naira recognized that it was car lights approaching the two and saw her dad's face in the car window. "No!" Evro screamed for a split second. Naira's dad drove his car right into Evro. The car slammed into Evro's body. The knife flew out of Evro's hand and he fell to the ground unconscious. "Dad!" Naira screamed tearily as her dad got out of the car. "Oh, my love," Naira's dad said, wrapping his arms around her. "I'm so sorry. I got suspicious a couple of hours after your call. I started thinking that the murderer must be someone Lanya knew, so I felt uncomfortable thinking about Evro picking you up. I followed his car here to keep an eye on you and himself. Then I saw the scumbag with his knife and drove the car into him," Naira's dad told her. Naira wrapped her arms around her dad, grateful to him for being alive. Chapter 16. Naira's dad had thrown the knife into the back of his car and locked the car door the night before. He had called the police on his mobile phone as Evro had laid unconscious on the ground. Naira's dad had put his foot on Evro to keep him down in case he came to. The police had arrived as Evro began to wake up. They put his arms behind his back and put them in handcuffs. Naira's dad had explained everything that had occurred and gave them the weapon Evro had used that he had locked in his own car until the police arrived. Evro had been taken away shrieking, "Do you know who I am? I am a member of the Coven of Satan. No one is more powerful than me." Naira stared in disgust and horror as he was taken away. Her and her dad followed the police car so that Naira could make a statement on everything that had happened that evening, telling them everything that Evro had revealed to her. It was the following morning now. Naira had slept with her mum in her mum's bed as she still felt a little scared. She sat in the living room with her mum and dad. It was around 12 p.m. "He's scum," Naira's dad said. "His parents can't believe it either." "It's like you don't really know who anyone is," Naira's mum commented, arm around Naira. Naira cuddled her mum, feeling protected in the presence of her dad and mum. She felt safe in her mother's arms. She had thanked her dad all night long for saving her. "He was evil, just pure evil. There was nothing good left in there," Naira commented. "Well, he'll be in prison for the rest of his days," Naira's dad told her confidently. "He's never going to see the light of day again. He will rot and die in there. And no more of this Coven of Satan rubbish," her dad added. The police had managed to get the names of all members of the Coven from Evro in his manic statements and rounded them all up. The Coven was now destroyed, all members facing life in prison, meaning to the end of their days. "Now we can live peacefully and not in fear," her dad added. "The evil has been found and destroyed." Naira sighed a sigh of relief. "Thank God," she said gratefully, leaning her head on her mum's shoulder. Epilogue. Evro sat in his prison cell staring into space. He still had a smirk on his face. "I'll just have to make do with everyone knowing who I am," Evro said out loud. "Until I can escape. I'll replace disposing of those I envy with being famous for it instead. Famous and behind bars," he told himself. "I'm glad the other Coven members aren't in the same prison. It's not my fault I had to give their names in. It was for a more comfortable life in here," Evro said out loud to himself. "Oh well," he said, "I will escape," Evro pledged to himself, "and I will restart the Coven of Satan and rise it to even higher glories, this time being the leader." Evro's eyes darkened. He heard a police officer shout to him on the other side of the door. "No, you won't," the voice shouted. "I will," Everett whispered to himself. "You'll see." The end. Right, so I hope everyone enjoyed that. That was my murder mystery novel / horror called Evil Born of Satan by myself, Priya Grewal, and it's available on Amazon in paperback or on Kindle. So that was season 2, episode 4 of my podcast. Hope everyone has a wonderful week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.